Welcome to This Team is Killing Us, a podcast about what the Carolina Panthers do to good people. She is Lauren Brownlow. I am Demetri Ravanas. And Lauren, what is killing me today is TV programming decisions. Don't get me wrong. I did leave my home and went to the Carolina Ale House with my son to watch the first half of this game. Forgot that Carolina Ale House food is really not good. And just forgot how much I do not enjoy watching a game I want to be able to pay attention to in a sports bar setting.
I was going to say, and that was part of it part of it for me is, and this is my dad coming out of me, the principle of I shouldn't have to spend money on this shit.
Agreed.
I live in North Carolina. I should be able to watch and when you go to a bar or whatever to watch a game, you have to spend some money. I didn't want to do that. I also had to pack and stuff because I'm leaving today to go, out of town for Christmas. So I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not.
Yeah.
So, but, and I was like, oh, radio, what is this primitive? But yeah, no, I never watch games in bars for that reason because you can't hear the audio. So if something happens and you don't know what's going on, you're going to miss something important.
So real quick, kudos to the Carolina Ale House in Briar Creek for making sure their big TVs had the Panthers on. For people that don't know, here in Raleigh, our Fox affiliate did not carry the Panthers game. Instead, it carried the Commanders and the Eagles. We could get into the hows and whys in just a moment. But the Carolina Ale House made sure that the Panthers were on the big TVs. However, the audio we heard was from the Commanders and the Eagles. So
oh my freaking God. You could just go home to watch that. And so you did.
Exactly. So after halftime, I didn't want to force myself to eat any more food. As the son of a restaurateur, I'm very conscious of when I'm taking up a table that could be giving actual money. So I don't feel super comfortable doing that. So we left, and I experienced the entire second half, and then I guess most of overtime too, on the radio, like everybody else did. But it was a bummer because they looked really good to open this game, and so many of the people that you and I talk to regularly on this show didn't get to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I was annoyed for sure. But it did, I will say this, because at first I'm like, radio, what is this? Do I need a boombox? I think I even texted you that. I was like, I don't want to have to buy, I might buy a boombox. But then I was like, no, I said I wasn't going to spend money on this. I'm not going to. And then I looked it up and because some teams are very weird about the radio rights and stuff. Right. And sometimes that's how it works. And I haven't had to listen to the radio in a while, but it's right there on the Panthers website. Just for future reference for all of you, it is a free stream. It was when the TV did finally catch up to the overtime, it was ahead of my television. Yep. So, I was impressed.
Radio will always be a play ahead of TV just because you're transmitting so much more information with video that it slows it down a bit.
Yeah, but not usually on a digital stream. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Usually those are delayed like crazy and people will not listen to them because of that reason, but this was not the case. So
all right, so we didn't have TV here, and us in Wilmington, Raleigh, or the Triangle in Wilmington, the only two markets in North Carolina that did not get the Panthers. Lauren did some digging. I'm not going to betray any of the people that told you what they told you off the record, but I've been thinking about this both from our text exchange and then in the days after. You can't convince me this didn't just come down to laziness. How did Greensboro and Greenville know to make their appeals to get the game they wanted, more of their audience wanted, and Raleigh and Wilmington did not? You just can't convince me at the end of the day this didn't come down to laziness.
I think that probably played a role. It's Christmas week. We know how that goes at any job, really. Yeah. And it seemed like it was kind of a last minute shakeup too. So I don't think they even knew ahead of time.
The public, we learned about it Monday, right? I think that's when 506 Sports tweeted out the game coverage map.
And we were all like, excuse me? What do you mean they're not coming on here? So initially it was an up top Fox decision. Just FYI. So people understand that. The big Fox, not WRAZ or whatever.
And just to make sure people understand, the decision Fox made had nothing to do with the number of Commanders fans in the Raleigh area. It had to do with, we are going to put our national game on in Raleigh. I think the fact that there are so many Commanders fans in the area played a role, Lauren, in why Capital Broadcasting did nothing about changing it up.
Well, and I wrote about this a little bit in my column. It's like Philly as well. I mean, there's a lot of Pennsylvania transplants here, I think. And then there are people that grew up here and had to pick a team. So the Commanders were certainly a big one. That's probably the biggest, but people picked like the Cowboys or the Steelers. And so add the transplants in with like some of the homegrown Steelers people, and you kind of have, so you have like a lot of fans of other teams for sure. But like I said, I think it contributes somewhat to like my small market defensiveness and insecurity, where I'm just like, this doesn't happen in New York, even when they're garbage. Like, why is this happening to us? You know,
right. I told you this, like when I first came to the Triangle, it was working for Curtis Media. We had done a sports like perception survey of the market. And keep in mind, this is 06. And at that time, there were more Washington than Carolina fans when it came to the NFL. But I would bet now, because of the Super Bowl, because Washington never had a star presence like Cam Newton, or even really like Steve Smith or Luke Kuechly.
No, some of those people converted. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, whether you and I agree or not, like, there are people that are angry about the name change. Like, I think at this point, it has absolutely flip-flopped, if not gone from 60-40 to like 51-49. Like, I don't think it's overwhelmingly more Washington fans anymore in the area.
Yeah, I will say though that like of the people that were born here, I mean, I think like if they do still have that attachment, it is out of like deep-seated loyalty to them.
And like family, like passed down to them, right?
Yes, 100%. So like they're not, and by the way, like why? Obviously they're not like a bandwagon. So, you know, that's what by the way, it's my biggest defensive Cowboys fans at the moment too. Like for the last like decade plus, I've been like, that's not a bandwagon. They're embarrassing. Like,
let's give credit where it's due. Because like you, like I think I've listened to maybe a quarter of the Panthers on the radio before Sunday, coming back from somewhere, but the radio broadcast is really good. Luke Kuechly is really good.
Like, I was so blown away by how much he was like breaking down and diagnosing and like often being right, you know, like Tony Romo in his original days, but like more intellectual instead of just being like Tony Romo would just be like, this is what's happening right now. Like Kuechly would be like, because of the way they're lined up and like blah, 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 this alignment. And I'd be like, wow.
Yeah, Kristen Balboni on the sideline knows exactly what that role is on radio, where she has good, short information and then back to the booth, because she doesn't have the benefit of pictures, you know, if she is talking over a play going. Like, I think the whole booth is really, really good. And so for that reason, like, I'm kind of glad I got to experience a game on the radio in this way, because more people deserve to hear that.
I love Anish. I got to hear a third and Thielen, which I enjoyed. I think Anish was the one who dropped the outlaw Joseph.
He was,
which I also very much enjoyed. You know, so like, bringing a little bit of fun and obviously like still telling me what's going on. And like, they weren't like questioning every call, but when they did question a call, it was enough to make me wonder like, oh, I wonder what that looked like. Wish I could see it.
Yeah.
You know, that would have been cool.
I had this, and look, I don't ever want to campaign for a broadcaster losing their job. That is not what I'm doing here. But I thought that Luke was so good that I didn't quite get why Jim Szoke was still there. In the past, they've had people that were. However, I will say, when that field goal goes in to tie it, and he lets out a very audible, ugh. Like, that's why
his noises, and like that's the thing with Jim, is like he is all of us. Jim is the one that's not afraid to be like the fan that's just like, oh fuck, here we go. You know, like, because he's seen it all. Like, he's been around this team for a long ass time. Like, since I think their first Super Bowl run, I want to say.
Oh, was it that? I thought that it was even earlier.
It's been a while.
I thought that he was.
It might be.
Yeah, I think he was Mick Mixon's first partner in the booth.
Well, Mick wasn't with the team for their first Super Bowl run yet.
Oh, he wasn't? Okay. All right. Yeah.
No, so not their first one. That was like 03, 04. If Jim wasn't there yet, he was not far behind. And like Jim is always that. And he's very dry. and very like
Yeah.
smart ass. And like he knows, like that's the thing. You don't hear much from Jim, but when you do, like it's usually useful. And it's usually something you're thinking, which I enjoy too, or like along those lines, and he'll just put it into better words and be like, yeah, well, it doesn't look too good because
Yeah.
you know, whatever. Like he's like the dry pessimist on the like the groan he let out when that went in. And then he's like, and then I think it was him that was like, can we just like get one break? Wouldn't that like can we get one?
Yeah, he was on a heater at the end of regulation for sure.
Yes, I loved it.
Speaking of the end of regulation, like that game absolutely should have been a blowout. I mean, they were up 20-3. The Panthers were up 20-3 at one point, and then slowly pissed that lead away to the point that we go into overtime. I said this in my post-game video.
It wasn't really that slow, though, was it? Like at halftime, it was already.
They had pulled it to within a touchdown, and then the Panthers come out, score, and the Cardinals go right back down and score again. Like there was no, once the Cardinals got going, there was no really grabbing the bull back by the horns for the Panthers. And I said this in my post-game video, and I don't mean this as an indictment of anybody. It is just a fact of where we are. This team has not learned how to win yet. Like I don't think it matters what Bryce or what A'Shawn Robinson or even what the two Texas rookies did. Like, it doesn't matter what you did in college. Winning in the NFL is a different animal, and this team doesn't know how to do it yet.
Right. It's a collective thing too, like, and it's a cultural thing. It's something where you have to, it's a skill that you have to learn. And like, it sounds cheesy to say that, you know, it's almost like talking about momentum or something, which some people believe in and some people don't. And you can make a case either way, but at the same time, it's like, and that's why I was texting you. I was convinced they were going to lose. Cause I was like, yeah, like I was done. I was just like, this is over. Like, even when they went to overtime, I was like, no, we're done.
And that's what I really thought they were going to lose. I didn't think Arizona was going to score a touchdown on that last drive in regulation, but once
I started to think they were going to score a touchdown on every drive. So
once Arizona went for that fourth down on their side of the field, like it was clear somewhere along the way, was it Jonathan Gannon is the coach's name? He clearly had heard what had happened with the Rams, that like they had to win or their season was basically over.
Yeah.
And I just had no faith that the Panthers could stop them on fourth down. And once they got the fourth down, I thought the Cardinals were just going to march down the field. I still think that so much of the learning how to win has to come from the very top, has to come from Canales, because I thought when they got the ball back, I was not surprised by this, but I didn't like it. Again, he called a super conservative plan. Now, granted, Chuba Hubbard broke two huge runs, and it didn't matter how conservative it was. But
I was going to say, like, for me, I have less of an issue with that because
I want to see the guy go for the throat more often.
Well, you could argue that, like, at that point too, like Chuba was, Chuba-ing along pretty well, you know, and so they weren't stopping him. They had a lot of time, which was, that was the biggest thing for the Arizona fourth down. Like, I hear what you're saying about like their season's on the line, but they were at their own 18 and you're in overtime and there's like 7 minutes and change left. So I was very like, you do not see many coaches, I feel like, do that.
I agree with you. I think my pushback to that would be that as much as we didn't have faith in the Panthers defense, I don't think Jonathan Gannon had any faith in his own defense either. And I don't blame him necessarily.
Right. And that's fair. Although, like, that's the thing, like the Panthers offense had kind of started slowing down and stalling out. And so that's why I was like, oh God.
Well, that's kind of why I didn't love the the call of the runs of Chuba. Obviously the runs themselves were fantastic, but it was more knowing that the next score wins and we're playing for the field goal as opposed to calling the game like you would in any other situation.
I mean, for me, like, it's just going to be hard for me to critique. Like, I would rather him put it in Chuba's hands than not, especially when it's working. Like, last week it wasn't working. So, you know, and to their credit, they didn't try to force it. And like, I didn't have much beef with it because like, it was not working. It was not going to happen.
I don't know if this was on the radio broadcast or on TV, but did you hear that by the end of the first half, Chuba already, and this is not about Chuba or Dave Canales, this is about how bad they got beat last week. By the end of the first half, he already had 3 more runs than he had in the entirety of the Cowboys game.
He had 10.
Yeah.
So, but by the way, I mean, it's worth noting the Cowboys, like, played pretty well again yesterday, and this time
Yeah.
at home. So like maybe they have figured something out along the way, and against a team that beat the Panthers. So
I was
like,
gonna say they
know.
are on their way to being NFC South champions, the Dallas Cowboys.
well, at least they can say they won something.
Right.
Been a while. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, like, look, for me, I get what you're saying, and you're not necessarily wrong in that way. It's just like especially when the first one worked so well, I'm like, okay, cool, like do it again. Like at that point, I think that was more what he was thinking, and not like, oh, we're just gonna hand off. Like I think if Chuba had gotten like stoned, at the line of scrimmage, I have no doubt in my mind that he would have been completely fine, like putting the ball back in Bryce's hands and letting him throw to whomever. It was a little bit of an up and down day in the pass game though, so it was like, and it wasn't like all on Bryce. It was more like the receivers or whatever, and there were some offensive things that I took issue with without being able to see. For example, the end around that they called in the first half on the goal line, which I was like, I'm sorry, does that say David Moore? What?
Yeah, they had an end around in the first quarter that they ran with Tompkins, which actually looked like it could have gone for more. Just the defender made a play, right? Like that could have gone for a whole lot more, but a guy made a play, and then there
can't run an end around in the inside the 5.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of Devin Tompkins, my son, who went with me to the Carolina Ale House to watch this game, did not believe me that he was smaller than Bryce. Like he just did not think this was possible for an NFL football player.
Well, did he see it for himself, and then believe it, or were they never next to each other?
Yeah, there was never a great shot that really illustrated like that Bryce really is considerably taller.
No, he's definitely
but it's kudos to Fox, who put up a graphic that made me even more frustrated with the fine folks at Fox 50, which was this was the first time we had a matchup of two 5'10" or shorter quarterbacks in the NFL in 50 years. Right?
What's bananas? What? Like, what? Wait, did Drew Brees and Russell Wilson never play? I'm sorry.
Maybe the measurement
is one of them over 6?
I was about to say maybe one of them, the measurement is 5'11", not 5'10", but that's the insistence was.
Oh, okay, that might be
last time we had a matchup of two 5'10" or shorter.
Russ is 5'11".
There you go. All right, before we get out of here, I do want to remind you that you can get
Drew
tickets
Brees is 6 foot? Sorry, that's a lie.
No, that's not true. That's like a football measurement.
Well, that's what he's listed as on Google. I was like, lies.
The Basketball Jones tickets are on sale right now, just over a month away. If you are scrambling, and look, this episode is out early. It's out on Christmas Eve. These do make good Christmas presents, a chance to enjoy a night full of comedy and storytelling about basketball in the Triangle, all hosted by our friend Bomani Jones. Lauren Brownlow is going to be a part of the show, Ovius and Gilio, members of the 09 National Championship Tar Heels team. We're going to have some more guests to announce in the new year, but you can get your tickets at eTix or by going to therialto.com and just clicking on the events page. It's the Basketball Jones with Bomani Jones, January 31st at the Rialto. And speaking of gift giving, you can gift a subscription to OG Fans. It is the exclusive subscription service of us here at OG Triangle Media. It is how you follow all of our Panthers coverage, because on Mondays, Lauren Brownlow puts out her column recapping the game. You get that with an OG Fan subscription, and you can get an OG Fan subscription for yourself or somebody you love at ogtrianglemedia.com. Lauren Brownlow, do you actually, because I know you, I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you for the benefit of the audience and play it along. Even though there is, quote unquote, nothing left to play for the Carolina Panthers, do you still get joy out of being able to fuck things up for the rest of the NFC South?
Oh, God, yeah. Well, I thought you were just going to say for Arizona.
So, so for people that don't know, the Panthers lost and knocked Arizona out of playoff contention. I think Arizona was in a spot where they would have to win the West, but this makes it impossible for them to do that. Buccaneers lost on Sunday. Falcons lost on Sunday. There is not a lot of daylight between those two teams, and losses to the Panthers for both of them could determine this thing.
Hell yes. No, this is what a petty bitch I am. Okay.
Sure.
It's been 16 years, but I believe it's been about 16 years, 15 or 16 years since Jake Delhomme took the field in a playoff game with a very good Panthers team that I thought had a chance to do some postseason damage against an Arizona Cardinals team that I thought was very mid.
Yes.
I stand by it. I don't care that they got hot in the postseason. Oh, adorable. Fine. Good for you. I don't care. They were mid. And Jake Delhomme had all of the turnovers in the known universe in that football game. It was my mother's birthday. That's part of why I will never forget it. She was devastated. I am sitting there like, I will hate this team for the rest of my adult life. And sure enough, I sure do. So yes, I was like, that's for making that happen to my football team and for deciding to be good at the end of the year when you just wanted to be mid the whole rest of it. I resent you and I feel vindicated.
I have said this many, many times on this show, but, I grew up a Buccaneers fan, and them signing Baker Mayfield right after Tom Brady retired was the sign for me that it's time to go. Like, it's never going to be what it was in 2002 or what it was in 20 again, because Baker Mayfield is the epitome of we're not tanking, but we're also not trying to win.
That's actually kind of wild to me, considering all the quarterbacks they had before Tom Brady, that was the one that broke you.
Yeah, it's because I was very comfortable in 2002 with I'm never going to see this again. This is going to be the only Super Bowl they win in my lifetime, and that is fine. Because you had all the characters on the defense that year.
That's why I'm so resentful of Arizona, in part, is because when the Panthers have a team that I believe is good enough to get there and get knocked out by some flukiness, they made the Super Bowl. Whatever. Fine. I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that it was, Brady took a team that was good enough, but was held back by pre-LASIK surgery, Jameis Winston, to a Super Bowl and won it. And when he left, there was clearly it just gave me flashbacks to the Gruden years. There is no plan for tomorrow. We are living for today. Just total bullshit, right? To keep that team out of the playoffs. As much as I love what Bryce Young has done for me as a football fan, that might be amongst my favorite things he would have ever done if the Panthers can pull this off.
I think I was trying to think who I hate the least in the division. I think it still might be them, just because the Falcons beat us enough to be annoying, and the Bucs do too. It's not like the Bucs don't, but when the Bucs beat us, I'm always like, okay, they're usually either better when they beat us or whatever. I usually feel like the correct team wins that game. Sometimes that's not true, but I usually feel that way. Whereas with Atlanta, no, it's usually very stupid and it just a lot of things happen that are infuriating in those games. And, the Falcons fans also, rightfully so, claim the mantle of most cursed fan base. But then I'm like, okay, well then why don't you do this against us?
Yeah,
it's not fair. Why don't we get the benefit of this?
Growing up a Tampa fan, so it's weird. Growing up on the Gulf Coast, I absolutely get the hate for the Saints. And now that is the team in the division that I hate the most. However, growing up, it was Atlanta, because Atlanta and Tampa, especially when I was in college, those Atlanta teams sucked. They just had Michael Vick. That was the only thing. And so, when those two teams would play, obviously in the Birmingham, Tuscaloosa area, you have a lot of Falcons fans that would be really cocky because they had Michael Vick. And every time, especially in Atlanta, the Buccaneers would just beat the shit out of them. And it gave me so much joy. So
he used to beat the Panthers routine. And then and I used to get so mad because he would get he would run and then get right to the sideline. And then Julius Peppers would be like, boop. And they'd be like, late hit. And I'd be like, come on.
Yeah. See, I really do think the Buccaneers at that time might have been the victim of the same sort of bullshit. However, in my lifetime, I've never seen a player that clearly the referees not just listened to, but as much as they liked Warren Sapp. Warren Sapp could just point out, hey, you should call this, and it would get called on the very next play, no matter who they were playing.
That's the last time I hated the Bucs was when when he was there, but in a fun way, in a way that it I loved hating them, and so it made it so that it was easy for me when they became not as good to just not, I'm not I'm not hanging on to that as much. It's
Yeah.
fine. Plus, I was married to a Buccaneers fan for a while, so it just became one of those things where it was like, we're going to be mostly friendly about it. I mean, we would troll every now and then, mostly him towards me because it always worked.
Right.
And he didn't care as much as me, so I couldn't really troll him. So that was also infuriating. But I mean, it was just fun to hate them. And I enjoyed that. It is fun to hate the Saints, but I do sincerely hate them from a play. Like, I don't care how bad they are. I will hope that they are worse.
No, I agree. They have a fan base that always assumes they are the good guy. And most of the country does not feel that way about them. I think that it would be as good of an achievement as you could possibly get, and I would welcome the worst draft pick if the Panthers were the reason that neither the Buccaneers nor the Falcons could go into the playoffs with a winning record.
Oh yeah. Well, what better thing to do for the NFC South anyways, Like
agreed. We're home. Chewy, we're home. 8-9 champion.